When I opened my eyes, my sixth brother was tossing a peanut into his mouth. She's always been delicate. Shin Yanking leaned back in his chair, grinning without a care in the world. Tomorrow, when she comes to see us out of the city, I bet she won't make it 5 li on horseback before she starts complaining that her legs hurt. Everyone around the table laughed. My seventh brother, Shin Yankin, sat closest to me. He was peeling an orange with maddening patience without even lifting his head. He said, "Ignore her. Say a few nice words and she'll come running after us on her own." My fingers jerked. The silver chopstick struck the rim of my bowl. A soft chime rang out. It was barely a sound, yet it felt as though something had slammed straight into my chest. I lowered my eyes. There was a slice of candied lotus root in my bowl, glistening beneath its coat of syrup. When I was 16, it had been my favorite food. By the time I died, I had not eaten it in years. All because my third brother had once glanced at my plate and said, "How can you eat something that sweet? Doesn't it make you sick?" After that, I stopped. And it wasn't only candied lotus root. I gave up many things. I was afraid of the cold, so I learned not to say I was cold. I was afraid of pain, so I learned to endure it. I loved bright, beautiful dresses, but after someone laughed that I looked too gaudy, I slowly began wearing nothing but pale, simple colors. When I was little and thunder shook the windows, I used to wrap myself in a quilt and run to seventh brother's room. After I turned 16, even when I was shaking with fever, I refused to knock on anyone's door because the words I feared most were always the same: delicate, spoiled, too sensitive. In my previous life, after this very family dinner, I had run after them in tears when sixth brother mocked me. I had flushed red and insisted that I could ride the next day. Seventh brother had found me annoying. He shoved the peeled orange into my hands and told me to stop making a fuss. And the next morning, because I was determined to prove myself, I really did ride out of the capital to see them off. The saddle rubbed the skin raw between my thighs. Blood soaked through my underclothes. I said nothing. When I returned to the estate, I burned with fever for 3 days. Eldest brother had touched my forehead and frowned. "How can you be so careless with yourself?" And I had still been happy because that day, second brother laughed and said, "At least she's finally not so delicate anymore." Just one sentence. I remembered it for years after that. Whenever something hurt, I endured it. Whenever I was tired, I forced myself onward. Whenever I wanted to cry, I first looked at everyone else's face to see whether I had permission. Until I was 28. It was winter. Snow covered the capital. An old illness flared, and I lay in bed with pain so deep that even breathing hurt. My 7 brothers returned one after another. Seventh brother, the youngest of them, sat beside my bed with eyes so red they frightened me. He clutched my hand and asked, "If you were suffering this badly, why didn't you tell us sooner?" By then I no longer had the strength to answer. I only looked at him and suddenly I remembered 12 years earlier. I had fallen and scraped my knee. He had laughed and said, "Why are you crying again?" Eventually, I truly stopped crying. And then he asked me why I never told my brothers anything. How strange it had taken me an entire lifetime to become exactly what they wanted. And in the end, they didn't like that version of me either. Z. Eldest brother's voice pulled me out of the memories. I looked up. 7 young faces sat around the table. My eldest brother, Shin Yangwin, was 27, steady and composed. Second brother, Shin Yanhong, was 25, the smile still lingering on his lips. Third brother, Shin Yangxiu, sat with his back perfectly straight. Fourth brother, Shin Yanli, was tapping sixth brother's bowl with his chopsticks. Fifth brother, Shin Yaning, sat quietly. Sixth brother, Shin Yanking, was raising an eyebrow at me. And seventh brother was still peeling his orange. They were all alive. So was I. This was 3 days before they were due to leave the capital for a period of military rotation on the frontier. I was 16 again. What's wrong? Seventh brother held the peeled orange toward me. Are you actually angry? In my previous life, I would have taken it. I would have felt wronged. I would have asked him whether he truly thought I was delicate too. This time I looked at the orange. Then I reached out and took another slice of candied lotus root instead. Sixth brother is right. The table went quiet. Sixth brother blinked. What? I bit into the lotus root. The sweetness softened on my tongue. I chewed slowly, swallowed, and then said, I am delicate. I'm afraid of the cold. I'm afraid of pain. I don't like riding horses. It's going to be freezing tomorrow, so I'm not going to see you out of the city. The orange stopped halfway to seventh brother's hand. Third brother frowned. It's only 5 li, mm. I nodded. So I'm not going. Eldest brother looked at me. We'll have someone choose a gentler horse for you tomorrow. You can ride slowly. His tone was perfectly natural. It was the same tone he had used countless times before. He had already decided for me. I raised my eyes. Eldest brother. I didn't say I was going. This time, the silence around the table was real. Even fourth brother stopped smiling. Eldest brother had probably never heard me speak to him that way. He frowned, but did not become angry. If you're unwell, you can take a carriage. I don't want to take a carriage either. Seventh brother finally put the orange down. Shanzai, what are you making a fuss about now? That familiar impatience was in his voice. In my previous life, hearing it would have made me panic. I would have been afraid he was truly tired of me, afraid he would stop paying attention to me. Even now, something in my chest still ached, but I did not explain. I lowered my head and continued eating. I'm not making a fuss. I just don't want to go. Seventh brother stared at me for a long moment, then he leaned back in his chair. Fine. Go or don't go. I don't care. After a beat, he added, anyway, once we actually leave tomorrow morning, you'll come running after us on your own. Laughter returned to the table. I smiled too. I did not argue. 3 days later, my 7 brothers left the capital. Before riding out of the estate, seventh brother turned around in his saddle and deliberately looked at me. Really not seeing us off? I stood beneath the covered corridor with a hand warmer in my arms. The wind outside was vicious. I tucked my chin deeper into the fox fur collar of my cloak. It's too cold. Seventh brother choked on whatever he had been about to say. Second brother burst out laughing. See, that's what you call delicate. In the past, I would have flushed. This time, I simply nodded. Yes. Second brother's laughter faded. Eldest brother watched me for a moment. Go inside. I nodded. Have a safe journey, brothers. 7 horses passed through the gates. Every other time they had left, I had followed them all the way beyond the city walls. Then I would stand at the end of the long road and watch until their figures disappeared completely. This time I watched only for a little while. Then I turned and went back inside. Qingdai followed me and asked quietly, Miss, don't you want to watch a little longer? No. I returned to my courtyard. Then I opened my trunks and began packing clothes. Qingdai jumped. Miss, what are you doing? I'm going to my maternal grandparents' home. Today? Tomorrow. She stared at me. But the young masters just left. Exactly. I folded a pale red silk shawl and laid it carefully into my luggage. I used to love that color. Later, fourth brother laughed that I looked like one of those brightly painted New Year dolls, and I never wore it again. Looking at it now, I still thought it was beautiful, so I placed it on top. My father spent most of these years away from the estate, but by coincidence, he was in the capital this time. I went to his study and told him I wanted to stay with my maternal grandparents for a while. He was reading a letter. He glanced up. Did you quarrel with your brothers? No. Truly? Truly. Father studied me for a while. Then he sighed. Go. After your mother died, you should have spent more time with your maternal grandparents anyway. I bowed. Thank you, Father. That afternoon, I finished packing everything I needed. At the back of a drawer was an unfinished wrist guard. I had been making it for seventh brother. He had injured his right wrist 2 years earlier, and in winter it sometimes ached. In my previous life, I had embroidered it stitch by stitch and given it to him on his birthday. He complained that the cloud pattern was too feminine. Then he wore it for years. I brushed my fingers over the half-finished embroidered cloud. In the end, I did not take it with me. I simply closed the drawer. The next day, my carriage left the Marquis estate. The wheels rolled over the stone road. Qingdai could not resist lifting the curtain to look back. Miss, we can still see the gates. I didn't turn around. Let the curtain down. The curtain fell. The towering red gates of the estate disappeared behind it. I leaned against a soft cushion with the hand warmer in my arms, and suddenly I thought, not chasing after them wasn't actually that difficult. The Su residence was not as grand as the Jingyuan Marquis estate, but it was peaceful. The moment my carriage entered the gates, grandmother was already standing beneath the covered walkway with her cane. As soon as I stepped down, she frowned. Why are you wearing so little? I looked down at myself. A fox fur cloak, a padded winter dress underneath. If this counted as too little, everyone at the Marquis estate would have laughed themselves sick. Yet my nose suddenly stung. Grandmother. I ran over and threw my arms around her. The impact made her sway. She reached up and smacked the back of my head. How old are you now? Still this clingy? My whole body stiffened instinctively. I began to pull away, but then she said, What's wrong with being clingy? You were worse when you were little. Inside, it's windy. I pressed my lips together and followed her indoors. That night, the Su dining room was warmed by floor heating flues. It was not cold at all, but my hands and feet had always been naturally cold. Even after drinking a bowl of soup, my fingers were still icy. Grandmother noticed me curling my hands. For one instant, the words "I'm not cold" were already on my tongue. I stopped. After a long while, I said, a little. Grandmother did not even lift her head. Bring another brazier. The senior maid beside her answered at once. Soon someone carried over a small charcoal stove. No one laughed at me. No one asked why I could possibly still be cold in such a warm room. No one even gave me a second glance, as though adding charcoal when someone felt cold was the most natural thing in the world. I stared at the red glow for a long time. Long enough that grandfather tapped the table. Will staring at charcoal fill your stomach? I came back to myself and lowered my head to drink my soup, but my eyes were burning. My maternal grandparents doted on me. That did not mean they allowed me to do nothing. The next morning, I slept until late. When I got up, grandmother was in the courtyard reviewing household accounts. I had barely sat down when she ordered someone to bring 3 boxes. What are those? The jewelry you brought. Count it yourself. I blinked. Can't Qing Dai do it? Her hands belong to her. Your possessions belong to you. You need to know how much you own. Grandmother gave me a look. Doting on you is one thing. Don't imagine you've come here to eat, sleep, and then sleep some more. I laughed. I understand. She snorted. And another thing. Yesterday you promised your grandfather you'd help organize his study. Go this afternoon. Being delicate doesn't excuse you from keeping your word. I froze. Then I laughed even harder. All right. It was probably the first time I had ever heard someone say the word delicate so naturally, without blame, without contempt, simply as if she were saying, you are afraid of the cold, and you still have to keep your promises. That was when I suddenly understood, being delicate and being useless had never been the same thing. Behind grandfather's study stood a small garden. No one had tended it properly for years. Dead vines climbed the walls. Several old plum trees leaned crookedly. At the center stood a camellia tree. Its trunk was thick and old, but the whole tree looked sickly. I stopped at the garden entrance. Something brushed softly against my heart. Was this Mother's garden? Grandfather came to stand beside me. Yes. Before she married, she was always fussing over this place. After your mother died, your grandmother couldn't bear to come here. So little by little, it was abandoned. I walked inside. Dry leaves cracked beneath my shoes. I remembered this place when I was small and Mother was still alive. She had once brought me here. She had held me on a stone bench and tucked a camellia blossom into my hair. In my previous life, I had spent many years refusing to think about Mother because whenever I thought of her, I cried. And crying was delicate. Now I stood in her abandoned garden and tears suddenly fell. Grandfather saw them. He did not tell me not to cry. He simply pointed at the old camellia. Your mother loved that tree most. Unfortunately, it's been doing worse every year. I wiped my eyes. I want to restore the garden. Grandfather looked at me. You know how? A little. In my previous life, because I wanted my brothers to like me, I learned many things they considered useful. Writing, archery, reading military maps. I was mediocre at all of them. Ironically, I had secretly studied flowers, trees, and incense materials for years because Mother had once taught me about them when I was small. I never dared say much about it. Third brother had once said, "What future is there in fiddling with flowers and grass?" Grandfather nodded. Then try. He did not ask whether it would be useful. He did not say a young lady should not concern herself with such things. A long-forgotten lightness rose inside me. That afternoon, I truly took a pair of shears and began pruning. The camellia had too many dead branches. I worked carefully. Just as I prepared to cut 2 more, a man's voice came from the other side of the wall. If you keep cutting like that, you may as well dig it up next spring. I jumped. The shears nearly slipped from my hand. Who's there? Silence lasted a moment. Then half a figure appeared above the wall. A young man in a pale blue-green robe. His features were quiet and refined. One hand rested on the top of the wall. He looked at the shears in my hand, then at the tree. Me? I frowned. Who are you? Pei Jingqing, second son of the Earl of Yongning. I knew the name. The Earl of Yongning's second son. He had injured his leg as a child. Unlike his father and elder brother, he had never taken the martial path. Many people in the capital called it a pity. At that moment, however, I only wanted to know one thing. Why are you on my grandfather's wall? He looked down. This wall belongs to both estates. I'm standing on a ladder on my family's side. I fell silent. Fair enough. I looked back at the camellia. What did you mean just now? The problem isn't that it has too many dead branches. Its roots were injured. If you prune the outer branches too aggressively, you'll weaken it further. He sounded perfectly calm. I was unconvinced. How do you know? Because I've been managing the flower nurseries next door for the past few years. I've seen plenty of trees like this. He did not climb over the wall to take the shears from my hand. He did not tell me to step aside and let him do it instead. He simply pointed. Keep that branch. Cut the far left branch from the third joint. Loosen the soil around the roots. Don't overwater it. I couldn't help asking, and if I don't listen? Pei Jingqing glanced at me. It's your tree. Whether you cut it is your decision. Then he really left. I stood there alone with the shears raised for a long time. I did not move. The men I had known seemed to love saying the same thing, listen to me. My eldest brother said it. My other brothers said it. Father sometimes said it. Even older male cousins liked saying things such as, girls don't understand this. I'll do it for you. It was the first time I had met a man who clearly believed I was doing something wrong and still did not take the tool from my hand. In the end, I followed Pei Jingqing's advice, not because he told me to obey him, but because after thinking carefully, I realized what he said made sense. After dinner that evening, a letter arrived from the Marquis estate. Qing Dai brought it in. Miss, it's from 7th Young Master. I opened it. There was only one line, I heard you actually moved to your maternal grandparents' home. I stared at it. I could almost imagine 7th Brother's expression while writing. Surprise, disbelief, maybe a little displeasure. In my previous life, I would have immediately written 10 pages of explanation. I would have said I wasn't angry, that I only wanted to spend time with grandmother, that 7th Brother was still my favorite. This time, I folded the paper and placed it in a box. Qing Dai asked, Miss, aren't you replying? Tomorrow. What will you say? I thought. Just tell him, ma'am. Qing Dai stared at me. I smiled. One word. That night, I lay beneath the soft quilts in my grandparents' home. The charcoal burned warmly. Snow fell beyond the window. For the first time, I did not lose sleep simply because my brothers were not nearby. On my 10th day at the Sioux residence, the camellia produced a new bud. It was tiny, no bigger than my fingernail. I crouched beside the tree and stared at it for ages. I was so happy that I could not stop smiling all morning. Grandfather passed by. It's alive. I looked up. Do you know him? Boy does know a thing or two. I looked up. You know him? I've watched him grow up. Grandfather sat on the stone bench. After he injured his leg, people wouldn't stop saying what a pity it was. He didn't care much. Started several flower nurseries himself. Lost a great deal of money in the first 2 years. They're finally doing passably now. I thought about Pei Jingqing's calm face. I wouldn't have guessed. That boy likes to pretend. Grandfather looked disdainful. Even when something hurts, he doesn't say it. The small garden shovel in my hand stopped. His leg still hurts? On damp days. The bones were badly injured when he was young. I did not ask more. Because that afternoon, Pei Jingqing came through the front gate. This time he was not hanging over the wall, he had brought grandfather a shipment of orchids. Passing the garden, he saw the camellia and stopped. It's alive. I deliberately lifted my chin. I saved it. He nodded. It has a strong will to live. I glared at him. What is that supposed to mean? I'm praising the tree. His expression was completely serious. I couldn't help laughing. Pei Jingqing looked at me. You look better smiling than frowning. I paused. But he had already changed the subject. Old Master Su said you want to restore the garden with fragrant flowers for all 4 seasons? Yes. You know incense making a little? A little. What about incense materials? A little. Pei Jingqing fell silent. Those 2 a littles had better not mean the same thing as your a little when you nearly murdered the camellia. I was so angry I raised my little garden shovel at him. He actually stepped back. Don't. That shovel is expensive. That only made me angrier. But this time I really was laughing. That was how Pei Jingqing and I became familiar. He did not flatter me. He did not always give way to me. When I did something wrong, he said so. When he was wrong, I said so too. But he never made decisions for me once. We planned to visit one of his flower nurseries. The Su family had prepared a horse for me. I stood at the foot of the steps and saw the saddle. A phantom pain suddenly flared between my thighs. The blood from that ride when I was 16 in my previous life seemed to soak my clothes all over again. I froze. Pei Jingqing was speaking to the nursery steward. He turned, saw that I had not moved, and walked over. What's wrong? Nothing. The answer came automatically. Then I startled myself. Nothing. It doesn't hurt. I can do it. Those had been the 3 most familiar phrases of my previous life. I pressed my lips together, then tried again. I don't want to ride. Pei Jingqing glanced at the horse. Then take the carriage. He did not ask why. He did not say it was such a short distance. He turned and told someone to harness a carriage. I remained where I was. Don't you think that's troublesome? He looked back. The carriage belongs to the nursery. So does the horse. What's troublesome about it? It will take an extra quarter hour. How does that inconvenience you? I had no answer. He seemed to think I was strange. If you don't want to ride in the carriage either, you don't have to go. The flower nursery isn't going anywhere. I'm going. I said it immediately. I want to go. Pei Jingqing nodded. Then get in. I was quiet the entire way. Fields rolled past the window. Wind stirred the carriage curtain. And suddenly I realized, I don't want to ride did not require a long list of reasons. Not wanting to was reason enough. Letters from my 7 brothers began arriving one after another. Eldest brother's first was exactly what I expected from him, stay with grandfather and grandmother for a few days, then return. There are still many matters at home to arrange. I replied, I will not return for now. I like it here. Second brother wrote, "Where are the honey-preserved plums you made this year?" I finished the ones I brought with me. Every time they traveled, I used to prepare 7 separate bundles. Which brother feared the cold? Which one hated bitter medicine? Who liked which snacks? I remembered those things better than they remembered themselves. This time I had prepared nothing. When I saw second brother asking about the plums, my hand automatically reached toward the recipe on my desk. Then I stopped. I pulled my hand back. My reply was, "Ask the traveling cook to make them." Sixth brother was more direct. "You're not still angry because I called you delicate, are you?" I stared at the line for a long time. Then I replied, "I'm not angry." Seventh brother sent the most letters. The first said, "You really left?" The second, "What's so great about living with grandfather and grandmother?" The third, "When are you coming back?" The fourth, "Shanzai, are you deliberately not replying to me?" I lined all 4 letters up on the desk. Chindai tried not to laugh. Seventh young master is getting anxious. I wanted to laugh too, but there was still something sour in my heart. As a child, seventh brother had always been my favorite. He was only 2 years older than I was. Mother died when I was 7. One stormy night, everyone was busy. I hid beneath my blankets and cried. 9-year-old seventh brother secretly crawled in beside me. He was afraid of thunder too, yet he patted my back and said, "Big brother is here." Later, as I grew older, he started finding me too clingy. But whenever he coaxed me a little, I always came back. So when he said she'll come running after us on her own, it wasn't cruelty. It was certainty. He was simply too certain. Certain that I would always be there. This time, I did not answer the 4th letter. The 5th arrived 2 days later. The commanding tone had disappeared. There was only one sentence, "What have you been doing lately?" I stared at it, then finally picked up my brush. Growing flowers. The next day, second brother wrote too for the first time. He did not ask about preserved plums. "I saw a red flower on the road today. I don't know what it was called. If you were here, you'd probably know." I showed the letter to Pei Jingqing. He glanced at it. "Does your brother think flowers are especially difficult to raise?" "They think I'm especially difficult to raise." Pei Jingqing looked up. I smiled. That was a joke. He didn't laugh. He lowered his gaze and continued arranging flower pots. After a while, he said, "Then be difficult to raise." I blinked. What? Camellias are difficult to raise too. That's why they're beautiful when they bloom. I stared at him. Pei Jingqing's expression remained calm. Don't misunderstand. I was talking about flowers. I suddenly wanted to laugh. Pei Jingqing, you're quite good at lying. At last, the corner of his mouth lifted. When I returned home that day, eldest brother's letter was waiting. Only a few lines. The last said, "Z, are you angry with us?" I held the letter. For the first time, I did not immediately deny it. Because I suddenly realized maybe I had been angry. The old me had simply been too afraid to allow herself anger. I was afraid that if I stayed angry too long, they would truly stop wanting me. But now I was allowed to have feelings. And I was allowed not to forgive immediately. I folded the letter, left it beneath the lamp, and waited until the next day to answer. Eldest brother, I'm not trying to punish anyone. I simply want to live with grandfather and grandmother. After writing those words, I felt unexpectedly light. Once a person began living her own life, time moved quickly. When I had lived in the Sioux residence for a month, the camellia was covered in fresh leaves. At 2 months, I attempted the first batch of the spring incense from Mother's notes. It failed spectacularly. The moment the incense powder caught fire, the whole room filled with a bitter burn smell. I covered my nose and fled outside. Pei Jingqing happened to be standing by the door. The smoke drove him 2 steps backward. Are you refining poison? Shut up. My face burned. It was only one failed attempt. He nodded. I know. My mouth said I knew too. My heart did not. In my previous life, I had been terrified of failure. Every time I did something badly, one thought surfaced immediately: see, my brothers were right. I'm useless. I picked up the charred piece of incense and tried to throw it away in secret. Pei Jingqing held out his hand. Give it to me. What for? Keep it. Why keep something that failed? So when you succeed later, you can take this out and look at it. His tone was mild. At least you'll remember you weren't brilliant from the beginning. I glared at him. How do you know I'll be brilliant later? Pei Jingqing considered. You might also remain terrible forever. I said nothing. He laughed. Failure is only failure. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. I stood there for a long time. Then I put the blackened incense back in its box. I did not throw it away. By the 3rd month, I could care for an entire small flower plot on my own. My incense formulas were still imperfect, but at least they no longer smelled bitter. I was busy. So busy that one day when Qingdai brought out fabric for a pair of knee guards, I suddenly remembered I had originally planned to make second brother a new set that year. He had suffered cold in his knees years ago. Winter dampness bothered him. The thread and cloth had already been prepared. I even threaded the needle without thinking. The tip pierced the fabric. Then I stopped. Every year in my previous life, I made them. And every year, second brother accepted them as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Once he even complained that the color was ugly. But he was already 25. He had servants, stewards, money of his own. Did he truly need me to make them? Qingdai asked, Miss, why did you stop? I pulled the needle out. Put it away. You're not making them for second young master? No. Qingdai studied my expression carefully. Are you still angry? I shook my head. No. I had simply begun to understand many of the things I used to do for my brothers were not things they truly needed from me. I did them because I desperately wanted to prove I was useful. If I stopped, the sky would not fall. Second brother would not freeze to death. They could live their own lives. And so could I. My brother's letters slowly changed over those 3 months. Eldest brother's changed most obviously. From stay a few days then returned to if you like the Sioux residence, it is fine to stay longer. Second brother stopped asking about preserved plums and wrote instead, I saw a red flower by the road today. I don't know what it was. You probably would. Fifth brother rarely wrote, but one letter asked, is your camellia still alive? Sixth brother even wrote, I won't compare you to Mingzhu again. Otherwise, you'll hold a grudge. When I saw the words hold a grudge, I still rolled my eyes. Seventh brother changed most. He continued sending the most letters. During the 1st month, he demanded every day that I come home. During the 2nd, he started asking what I was doing. In the 3rd month, one letter contained only, back then, when I said you'd come running after us on your own, I was speaking carelessly. I looked at it for a long time. I did not reply because I did not know how. Of course, I understood that he had spoken carelessly. But often the words that hurt most were exactly the ones spoken without thought. On the day marking exactly 3 months since I moved to the Sioux residence, I was in the incense room testing a new proportion. A gate servant suddenly rushed in. "Miss." Without looking up, I asked, "What happened?" "The 7 young masters have returned to the capital." The incense spoon stopped in my hand. So did my heart. Qingdai lit up. "All 7? All 7. The servant caught his breath. "And they're all blocking our front gate right now." I stared at him. The spoon fell into the bowl. Pei Jingqing was sitting on the other side of the room recording flour material accounts. He looked up. 7? Yes. He looked at me. Going? I suddenly felt nervous, as though I had returned to years ago. And yet I hadn't. Pei Jingqing did not urge me. He simply closed the ledger. "If you don't want to see them, you don't have to." I drew in a breath, then stood. "I'll see them." Not because I was afraid they would be angry. I simply did want to see them. It had been 3 months. I missed them too. Becoming independent did not require me to lie about that. As I approached the front courtyard, I heard 4th brother's voice from far away. "I told you climbing the wall would be faster. None of you listened." Eldest brother's cold reply followed. "Try it." My steps paused, then continued. 7 men. Not one missing. They filled the entrance to my grandparents' residence. Dust from the road still clung to them. They had not even returned home to change clothes. 7th brother saw me first. His whole expression changed. He opened his mouth. He looked as though he wanted to scold me or laugh. In the end, he said nothing. He simply strode toward me. "Shanzai." He walked so fast he almost tripped over the threshold. I stood beneath the corridor and looked at him. 3 months apart. He was darker, thinner. Travel dust clung to his cuffs. He was only 18. Yet at that moment, he looked as if he had truly suffered through something outside the shelter of home. My heart softened instantly. I nearly blurted, "7th brother, why have you lost so much weight?" But the first thing he said was, "So you still know how to come out and see us?" Half the softness vanished. I looked at him. This is my grandparents' home. Of course I'm allowed to come outside. 7th brother choked. 2nd brother couldn't hold back a laugh. "Serves you right." 7th brother glared over his shoulder. "Shut up." Then he looked at me again. His eyes were strangely red. "What is wrong with you?" "What do you mean?" 3 months. You really didn't come back to the estate once. I said calmly. "I wrote to you. I said I was doing well." "Who asked whether you were doing well?" He was getting agitated. "I'm asking why you didn't come home." "Because I wanted to live here." "What about the Marquis estate?" "That's home too." "If it's home, then why?" He stopped halfway. Perhaps he realized there was no clean way to finish the question. Finally, he forced out. "Little sister, who gave you permission to stop wanting your brothers?" Everything at the gate fell silent. Even the servants who had been secretly watching lowered their heads. I froze too. Because hearing the sentence for real, the sentence that would sound so triumphant in someone else's story, did not make me feel triumphant. It made my heart ache. When I was little and he held me through thunderstorms, seventh brother had said, "Don't be afraid. Your brother is here." Later he said, "Coax her a little. She'll come running back." Now he said, "Who gave you permission to stop wanting your brothers?" I looked up at him. "I never said I didn't want you." Seventh brother answered immediately. "Then come home with me." I said nothing. Eldest brother had already turned toward the coachman. "Bring the carriage around. She has a lot of things. Send people inside to pack." Eldest brother. I interrupted him. He turned. I asked, "What are you doing?" His brow drew together. "Taking you home." I never said I was going. The seven of them fell silent at once. Not dramatically. They were truly stunned. Eldest brother must have believed that I had simply been sulking these 3 months. That once they returned, I would go back with them. Second brother was holding a bag of sweets I liked. Fourth brother had spent the journey joking about how they would settle accounts with me once I came home. Fifth brother was even holding my cat. The moment the cat saw me, it began meowing. My heart nearly melted. But I still did not change my mind. Eldest brother was quiet for a moment. "How much longer do you want to stay?" "I don't know." Seventh brother immediately exploded. "What do you mean you don't know?" "I mean, I don't know." "You're still angry, aren't you?" "No." "If you're not angry, then why?" I looked at him. Seventh brother. He stopped. "You said it." "Said what?" "You said not to pay attention to me. You said if you coaxed me twice, I'd run after you myself." Seventh brother's expression changed. I know. I nodded. "You said it carelessly. But I heard it. So this time, I didn't run after you." Seventh brother opened his mouth. No words came. His eyes grew even redder. I felt terrible too. But unlike my previous life, I did not immediately say, "Forget it. I don't blame you." Because I had blamed him. It had hurt. Those things were also true. Second brother stepped forward and held out the sweets. "For you. Your favorite." I accepted them. "Thank you, second brother." He visibly relaxed. "Then let's go I'll take the sweets." I smiled. "That doesn't mean I'm going home." Second brother's expression was magnificent. Fourth brother burst out laughing. "Second brother, looks like you wasted your money." I looked at fourth brother. "You all rushed here without even returning to the estate." Fourth brother spread his hands. "Someone entered the capital. Heard you were still at the Sioux residence and came flying straight here without even getting off his horse." Seventh brother flushed with embarrassment. "Shut up." I couldn't help laughing. Seventh brother saw me smile and froze. "You're obviously happy." "I'm happy to see all of you." I answered frankly. "You missed us?" "Yes." His face brightened at once. Then I added, "But I still don't want to go back." His expression collapsed again. I nearly laughed aloud. Eldest brother had been watching me the entire time. Finally, he asked, "Then when do you want to return?" I thought carefully. In the past, I always gave people definite answers. I was afraid uncertainty would make them anxious. For the first time, I said, "I don't know." Something shifted in eldest brother's brow, but he did not press me. He only nodded. "All right." Seventh brother whipped around. "Eldest brother, she said she doesn't know. So we wait until she does." Seventh brother looked incredulous. Eldest brother glanced at him. "What else? Are you going to tie her up and carry her home?" Seventh brother shut his mouth. At that moment, grandmother finally walked out. She leaned on her cane and swept her gaze over 7 tall grandsons blocking her doorway. "Why are you all standing there? The Sioux family isn't collecting door gods today." Fourth brother grinned first. "Grandmother, don't try to charm me." She snorted. "If you want to see Z, fine. But there are rules." The 7 brothers looked at one another. I had a terrible feeling. Grandmother raised one hand. First, no entering her courtyard without permission. Second, no calling her delicate little thing or anything like it. Anyone who does gets thrown out. Third, stop agreeing to things on her behalf. And the last rule, she looked directly at 7th brother, "When Z says no, she means no." 7th brother's face turned green. Grandmother ignored him. She turned away. "If you want dinner, come inside. If not, go back to your own house." The 7 looked at one another. Then eldest brother stepped over the threshold first. The other 6 immediately followed. I stood to the side and suddenly I wanted to laugh. For the first time in my life, my 7 brothers had to learn rules before being allowed through a door. It felt surprisingly good. After my brothers returned, peace vanished from the Sioux residence on the first day. Second brother arrived with sweets. The moment he sat down, he started. "Didn't you always love?" I looked up. He stopped immediately. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Do you still like these?" I looked at the box of pine nut candy. I actually didn't like it that much anymore. In my previous life, I ate so much sweet food as a child, then gave it up for years. Now, even after allowing myself sweets again, I no longer craved the same things. Not really. Second brother went rigid. "How is that possible? I liked it before." "I don't now." He stared at the candy box as though something had personally betrayed him. After a long time, he managed, "Oh. Then what do you like?" I thought. "Osmanthus cakes. The kind that aren't too sweet." He nodded. The next day, 3 boxes of osmanthus cakes arrived. Each had a different level of sweetness. I couldn't help smiling. He still insisted. "Don't read too much into it." I was passing by. "Your house is 2 streets in the opposite direction from Guiyang Bakery." Silence. Second brother, "Shut up." On the 3rd day, 4th brother climbed the wall. The reason was simple. He thought walking around to the front gate was too much trouble. Grandmother had said no one entered without announcing themselves. 4th brother trusted his light-footed martial skills, so he went over the west wall. The moment he landed, he encountered the enormous white goose grandfather had raised for 10 years. The goose looked gentle most of the time. When it chased someone, it became a demon. 4th brother sprinted across the entire courtyard with the goose attacking his calves. By the time I came outside, he slipped and went straight into the pond. The spring pond was shallow but cold. He stood up, drenched from head to toe. His face was black with fury. I clung to a pillar and laughed so hard I could barely stand. Fourth brother shouted, "Shanzai, you're laughing at me." I laughed harder. "Why can't I?" He opened his mouth, then stopped himself. His mouth twitched. Finally, he said sourly, "I'm delicate. You aren't allowed to laugh at me." I froze, then laughed so hard tears came. Fourth brother began laughing too as he climbed out of the pond. "How is grandfather's goose still alive?" From the distance, grandfather shouted, "It will still be alive after you're dead." The whole courtyard erupted again. This laughter felt different. In the past, when everyone laughed at me, I often laughed too, but my chest would be tight. Now it wasn't. I simply thought fourth brother falling into the pond was hilarious. I like that kind of ease. Fifth brother was the quietest. After returning my cat, he would sometimes sit for half a day without saying much. The cat lay on my knees, purring. I stroked its fur. "You're not going back to the estate?" He shook his head. "I'll sit a while." "What's wrong?" He took out a box from his sleeve and set it on the table. I opened it. Bookmarks. Wooden ones, bamboo ones, pressed flower ones. I looked at him in confusion. "Why are you giving me these?" Fifth brother was silent for a moment. "A few days ago, I was organizing my study. I realized all the bookmarks in my books had been replaced by you over the years." My fingers stopped. He continued. "When one broke, you replaced it. I never asked. I never even noticed." I looked at him. Fifth brother pressed his lips together. "I don't think I've ever really known what you like." The words were quiet. They made my nose sting more than any grand apology would have. Fifth brother had never been the one who hurt me most. He had simply grown used to my existence. Used to me remembering. Used to me giving. Used to me always being there. "I like flowers," I said. "I like incense. And I like beautiful clothes." Fifth brother nodded very seriously. "I'll remember." And later, he truly did. But that came much later. Seventh brother was the hardest to manage. He broke grandmother's first rule 3 times. The first time, he charged directly into my courtyard. Grandmother had servants throw him out. The second time, when I was in the garden, he secretly sat outside my bedroom door waiting for me. Grandmother found him out again. The third time, he finally learned to ask, "Can I come in?" I deliberately answered, "No." His face stiffened. "Why?" "I'm changing." "Oh." He immediately backed 3 steps away. "Then change." I laughed behind the closed door and suddenly realized something. When I said no, he didn't disappear. That afternoon, Pei Jingqing and I went to the flower nursery. My 7 brothers met him properly for the first time. The atmosphere became strange. Eldest brother examined him from head to toe. Second brother looked at his leg. Fourth brother looked at his face. Seventh brother was the most direct. "Who are you?" Pei Jingqing bowed politely. Pei Jingqing. Seventh brother frowned. "What are you doing with my sister?" Pei Jingqing looked at me. "Are we still going to the nursery today?" "Yes." "Then let's go." He did not answer seventh brother at all. Seventh brother nearly choked. "You." Second brother grabbed him. What are you doing? He hasn't stolen anything from you. Seventh brother's face grew even darker. Is she a thing to be stolen? I said lazily, at least seventh brother managed one sensible sentence today. Everyone laughed. Seventh brother glared at me but did not lose his temper. Before I got into the carriage, second brother noticed the cold and blurted, "It's so cold and you're still." Eldest brother raised one hand, stopping him. I had already put on my thickest cloak and picked up my warmer. Eldest brother looked at me. Come back early tonight. The sentence still sounded a little like an order, but after a pause, he added, if you want to. I smiled. I know. The carriage left the lane. Pei Jingqing sat opposite me. Suddenly, he said, you have a lot of brothers. They're noisy. I tried to hold it in. I failed and laughed. The 7 brothers came almost every day for half a month. Eventually, grandmother got tired of them and ordered all 7 to stay for dinner one evening. Better than having them come one by one. They're wearing down my threshold. 4th brother immediately said, Grandmother, I climbed the wall. Grandmother smiled coldly. Next time I'll put the goose on wall duty. 4th brother shut up. Dinner was pleasant. Halfway through, 4th brother suddenly said, Do you all remember when Z was little? And I looked up. He stopped. What? I don't want to hear embarrassing stories from when I was little. 4th brother blinked. In the past, if I said that, he would have laughed. What's the problem? We're family. We're joking. The others might even have told me not to be petty. Now, 4th brother watched me for a moment, then swallowed the rest of the story. Fine, I won't say it. I was the one caught off guard. He put a piece of fish in his bowl. Stop staring at me. Is there a flower growing on my face? No. Then eat. I lowered my head and suddenly wanted to cry. Not because I was sad, but because it was so simple. I said I didn't like it, so he stopped. Why had I never dared to say it seriously in my previous life? After dinner, 2nd brother did not leave. He waited under the covered corridor. I walked over with the cat in my arms. What is it? For once, 2nd brother was not grinning. I want to tell you something. Tell me. He stared at the ground. When you used to cry, I always said you're crying again. I said nothing. When you were very little, I wasn't like that. If you fell, I picked you up too. But then you got older. I couldn't exactly keep carrying you around and coaxing you. I raised an eyebrow. So you mocked me instead. His ears turned slightly red. I didn't know how to comfort you. I thought if I teased you a little, you'd feel better. I looked at him. I hated that sentence. 2nd brother immediately looked up. I did not say it's fine. I did not say you didn't mean it. I simply continued. Sometimes I really was in pain. But once you said crying again, I stopped daring to cry. His lips moved. After a long time, he said, I'm sorry. Very quietly. It was the first time he had ever apologized to me so seriously. My chest ached, but I did not smile immediately. I simply nodded. I heard you. 2nd brother clearly waited for something, for me to say I forgave him. I didn't. In the end, he did not pressure me. He only sat a little longer. I won't say it again. Good. Don't cry. I looked up. He panicked. No, no, I mean, at last I laughed. Second brother, you are truly terrible at comforting people. He laughed too. I'll learn. After that day, the thorn in my heart where second brother was concerned slowly loosened. What surprised me more was this: my brothers did not transform into perfect men overnight. Eldest brother still had a habit of arranging things. Third brother still often said, just endure a little longer. Sixth brother occasionally compared people without thinking. When seventh brother became impatient, he would still begin, "Why are you so?" only to choke off the word delicate halfway through. They did not suddenly become flawless brothers. Strangely, that reassured me. Real change was slow. Pei Jingqing visited often during that period. The more my brothers saw him, the less they liked him. One day, after I had spent the entire day working, seventh brother wanted to see me that evening. I was exhausted. Pei Jingqing noticed. Are you still seeing him tomorrow? I don't want to. Then out of habit, I added, but he might. If you don't want to, don't. He cut me off. Seventh young master will not die tomorrow. I glared at him. Who speaks like that? It's true. Aren't you afraid of my brothers at all? Why would I be? There are 7, not 70. I laughed until I couldn't stop. He said, "You laugh more now than when you first came here." I paused. Do I? Yes. Before, every time you refused someone, you looked like you owed them 100 taels. Now you only look like you owe 10. I hit him with my fan. He dodged. His smile was faint. And suddenly I realized I liked being with him. Not because he always agreed with me, but because with him I did not need to perform the role of a sensible, easy girl. Xin Mingzhu was injured around the Qingming season. Several younger members of the Shen family had arranged a riding excursion outside the capital. I went by carriage. Sixth brother saw me step down. His lips twitched. He probably wanted to say something teasing. In the end, he held it back. He only asked, "Cold?" I answered honestly. Yes. He threw his cloak at me. Put it on. Aren't you cold? My skin is thick. I laughed and accepted it. Mingzhu was an excellent rider. Everyone had praised her since childhood. She wasn't afraid of falling. Unlike me. I had heard those words countless times. Mingzhu herself often smiled and said, "Sister Z has such delicate skin. Naturally, she's different from me." I used to dislike her. I thought she did it deliberately. Now I watched her circle the riding field and suddenly noticed something. Every time she landed after a difficult maneuver, she looked at the people around her first, as though checking whether everyone still thought she was impressive. I knew that movement too well. Because in my previous life, I had done the same thing. Later, Mingzhu's horse spooked. She fell. Everyone rushed toward her. She immediately stood. I'm fine. Sixth brother even laughed. See? I told you Mingzhu was sturdy. Something in me dropped. She took 2 steps. Her right foot landed strangely. Wait. I stopped her. Mingzhu smiled. I'm really fine. Something is wrong with your foot. I only twisted it. It doesn't hurt. Those 2 words turned something inside me cold. It doesn't hurt. I had said them too many times. I walked over. Stop walking. Call a physician. Mingju's expression changed. Sister Z, there's really no need. There is. She became anxious. Everyone's here. It's only a sprain. If I endure it, why should you endure it? I looked at her. Mingju froze. So did everyone else. I crouched and gently touched her ankle. The instant I did, her face went white. I looked up. This is what you call not hurting? The physician arrived quickly. After examining her, his expression became serious. The injury is significant. She must not ride again in the near future. If she continues forcing herself to walk or ride, she may be left with a chronic injury. All the color disappeared from Mingju's face. Sixth brother wasn't smiling anymore. Third brother frowned. It's that serious? The physician nodded. If the young lady had spoken earlier, she might have suffered less. Everyone looked at Mingju. Suddenly, she cried. Quietly, one tear after another. Sixth brother panicked. Why are you crying? Does it hurt? She shook her head, then cried harder. Finally, she choked out. I was only afraid you'd all think I was delicate too. My breathing stopped. Sixth brother went completely still. Third brother fell silent. Mingju lowered her head. Since I was little, you always said I was sensible. That I wasn't like Sister Z. Sister Z cried. I didn't. She was afraid of the cold. I wasn't. She didn't dare ride fierce horses. I did. If I start saying something hurts too, will you stop praising me? I stood beside her. It was like looking at my previous self. The girl who would do anything to hear someone say, "You're so sensible." It turned out I was not the only one. Mingju looked at me through tears. Actually, sometimes I envied you. She looked at me. Envied me? When you cried as a child, at least you had 7 brothers to comfort you. My eyes burned instantly. All those years, I only saw everyone comparing her to me. I never considered what those comparisons did to her. The difference was simply this: I suffered when I lost. She was afraid to stop winning. When we returned, grandmother heard Mingju had twisted her ankle. Her first words were, "How can a young girl be so fragile?" I sat nearby. My fingers tightened. In the past, I would have lowered my head. This time, I looked up. Grandmother. She looked at me. Pain is pain. Admitting it won't cause the Shin family's honor to collapse. The hall went quiet. Grandmother's expression darkened. Z, you are becoming more and more. Grandmother. Sixth brother suddenly interrupted. We all looked at him. For once, there was no smile on his face. Mingju is genuinely badly injured. Let her recover properly. Grandmother frowned. Third brother spoke too. Yes. Don't make her walk. Grandmother said no more. I suddenly realized something. Not one of my brothers had told me to stop talking. The next day, third brother came to the Sioux residence alone. He sat in the garden for a long time without speaking. I poured him tea. What's wrong? He held the cup. A long time passed. Then he said, I want to tell you something. When third brother was 13, he had fallen from a horse and broken a rib. I knew that. I did not know he had cried. Father only said. Third brother stared into the tea. A son of the Shin family stands up on his own. So I stood after that. No matter how much something hurt, I didn't cry. I listened quietly. I always thought people could get through anything if they endured. So when you said you were tired, I told you to hold on a little longer. When you said you were afraid, I thought you simply needed to try again until you weren't. He gave a bitter little smile. When Mingzhu said she was afraid of being called delicate, I realized I've been forcing the only method I know onto all of you. I looked at him. He had always been the strictest of my brothers. He was also the harshest toward himself. I used to think he simply didn't understand me. Now I realized he didn't understand himself either. Z, for the things I did that hurt you before, I'm sorry. I pressed my lips together. I know you weren't trying to hurt me. But I was hurt. Third brother nodded. He did not ask me to forgive him. He only said, I'll learn something new. My nose stung. Learn what? Didn't you say that when something hurts, you should say it? I'll try. I smiled. Good. Sixth brother's change was simpler. A few days later, one of our older aunts came to visit Mingzhu. She saw me there too and laughed. Mingzhu has always been the sensible one. Z was delicate from childhood. Sixth brother happened to enter. In the past, he would have immediately agreed. Exactly. This time he stopped. His expression looked awkward. Why compare the two of them? The aunt blinked. Sixth brother himself looked unused to the words. He scratched his nose. Mingzhu is Mingzhu. Z is Z. Since when does being afraid of pain mean someone isn't sensible? I stood inside and stared at him. Sixth brother became annoyed. What are you looking at? Sixth brother looks rather pleasing today. Didn't I look good before? Your mouth didn't. Silence. Mingzhu burst out laughing. Sixth brother chased us around the room cursing. The house became loud. And in that moment, I suddenly thought, perhaps a family did not have to be a place where no one ever made mistakes. Perhaps it could be a place where people made mistakes and were willing to learn something better afterward. Around the same time, trouble hit Pei Jingqing's flower nurseries. A late cold snap arrived too suddenly. A large shipment of newly transplanted seedlings had to be moved into warm sheds overnight. When I went there the next morning, I saw Pei Jingqing limping. His face was pale. Your leg hurts. No. He answered too quickly. I stopped. Pei Jingqing realized it too. Only a little. How much is a little? I can walk. I used to say that too. I looked at him. So he fell silent. I copied his usual calm tone. If it hurts, why don't you say so? It's not serious enough to. I used to say that too. Pei Jingqing had nothing left to answer. I laughed. You're very good at advising other people. When it's your turn, suddenly you don't know anything. Old habit. Change it. The word came out with too much authority. He lifted his eyes. Are you ordering me? I froze. Yes. Without noticing, I had begun deciding for someone else. I immediately corrected myself. Then let me say it differently. Would you like me to help? Pei Jingqing looked at me. Wind moved the loose hair across his forehead. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Yes. One word. My heart softened strangely. I did not need to be useful to have value. But being needed by someone I liked still felt good. We worked together arranging the warm sheds. By dawn, I was exhausted. I sat beside a flower rack and fell asleep. When I woke, there was a cushion behind my back. Pei Jingqing sat several steps away, looking through a ledger. I rubbed my eyes. Why didn't you wake me? What for? To help. We finished. He glanced at me. You did everything? The steward and workers were here. Oh. Then I noticed the cushion behind me. Yours? Your leg hurts and you gave it to me. Without lifting his head, he said, I'm sitting in a chair. I'm not sitting on the ground. I hugged the cushion and smiled. Pei Jingqing. Next time your leg hurts, say so. He turned a page. You too. Neither of us looked at the other, but the morning sunlight felt unusually warm. I attempted Mother's 4 seasons incense 17 times. The 18th finally succeeded. I did not follow her notes exactly. One ingredient was nearly impossible to find now, so I replaced it with white plum blossoms I had grown myself. When the incense began burning, there was first a faint cool fragrance, then slowly a trace of sweetness, like spring snow melting over flowering branches. I sat before the incense burner and suddenly wanted to cry. This time I didn't stop myself. The tears fell, then I laughed at the same time. Qingdai's eyes reddened beside me. If Madame were still alive, she would be so happy. I nodded. Not because I had finally created something useful. Simply because I loved it. I had made it. That was enough. Later, grandmother asked, "What do you want to do with it?" I want to open a small incense studio. To earn a fortune? No. Then why? I like it. Grandmother watched me for a while, then nodded. Then do it. Manage the accounts yourself. If you lose money, bear it yourself. I smiled. I know. The incense studio opened in a small storefront beside the Su residence. It wasn't large. I made only limited quantities each day. On opening day, not one of my 7 brothers was absent. 7th brother reached for a box first. This smells good. I slapped his hand. Pay. He stared at me in shock. I'm your real brother. So? You're charging family? Yes. Put it on my account. No credit. 7th brother's eyes widened. 2nd brother laughed so hard he pounded the table. Shanyanking, I never thought I'd live to see this day. 7th brother turned. What are you laughing at? 2nd brother picked up 2 boxes. I have money. 4th brother immediately cut in. I'll buy 3. 5th brother silently took out silver. 6th brother complained. Why don't real brothers get a discount? I considered. You do. All 7 looked at me. An extra 10%. The entire shop exploded with laughter. 7th brother chased me around the counter as though he meant to beat me. I ran laughing and dodging him. I used to love this kind of chaos. Then I slowly stopped running and shouting because I was afraid everyone might find me annoying. Now I ran again and didn't feel embarrassed at all. Pei Jingqing arrived last. He was carrying a pot of white camellias. I blinked. For me? He handed it to me. Opening day. I looked down at the flowers. They were the same variety as the old camellia from our first meeting. Pure white, layer upon layer of petals. You grew these? The nursery cultivated them. Were they expensive? Not too bad. How much is not too bad? Pei Jingqing looked at me. On the first day of your business, you're already calculating money with me. Habit. He smiled. They're a gift. I held the pot, then suddenly asked, Pei Jingqing, why are you always so good to me? He went quiet. My 7 brothers were still making noise at the back of the shop. Yet in that moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Pei Jingqing looked at me for a long time. Because I like you. My breath caught. His tone remained calm, as though he had not said anything earth-shattering. But I'm telling you because I want you to know. Not because I expect an answer now. If you don't like me, that's fine. I'll still come here normally and buy incense. I won't suddenly. Pei Jingqing. I looked at him. For the first time, my mind did not immediately ask, someone likes me, what do I owe him in return? Nor did I think, if I reject him, will he be disappointed? Instead, I asked myself one simple question. Did I like him? Yes. I liked that he asked whether I wanted things. I liked that he knew more about camellias and still did not take the shears from my hand. I liked that when his leg hurt, he could be just as stubborn as I was. I liked that both of us were learning how to admit we sometimes needed other people. So I said, then you may continue liking me. For once, Pei Jingqing looked stunned. What does that mean? It means, I held the white camellia tighter. I like you too. He stood perfectly still. Then color slowly climbed into his face. I suddenly found it extremely entertaining. So Pei Jingqing could blush. A loud crash came from behind us. 7th brother had slammed a box onto the table. What? I closed my eyes. I had forgotten there were 7 people behind us. 2nd brother reacted first. Pei Jingqing, what did you just say? Pei Jingqing answered calmly. I like Z. 4th brother sucked in a breath. 3rd brother's face darkened. Eldest brother slowly stood. My scalp tingled. Don't you all? Pei Jingqing asked me first. Do you want me to leave? I froze. All 7 brothers looked at me. And suddenly I laughed. No. Pei Jingqing nodded. Then I won't. 7th brother nearly lost his mind. You're still not leaving? Pei Jingqing said, Z told me I don't need to. I couldn't help laughing again. 7th brother grew even angrier, but in the end they did not throw Pei Jingqing out. Because now when I said no, I meant no. The real conflict came later than I expected. When paternal grandmother learned I had lived with my maternal grandparents for nearly a year and had even opened an incense studio, she finally lost patience. She sent word ordering me back to the Marquis estate. This time I went, not because I was afraid, because the matter needed to be spoken clearly. All 7 brothers were in the main hall. Grandmother sat at the head. When I entered, her expression was controlled. Finished playing? I bowed. Grandmother, I haven't been playing. Her face hardened. Living with the Su family, fiddling with flowers, now opening a shop. You're a daughter of a marquis household. What do you think you look like? In the past, those words would have made me panic. I would have immediately wondered whether I had done something wrong. Now I simply sat down calmly. I like it. Grandmother laughed coldly. Can a person do anything simply because she likes it? Why not? You're a girl. You'll marry one day. Your manners have become worse and worse. She turned toward eldest brother. Yingguan, I've already had her courtyard prepared again. Bring her home tomorrow. Eldest brother answered automatically. Tomorrow I'll have, then he stopped. I looked at him. So did everyone else. Eldest brother was silent for a moment. Then he turned to me. Z, do you want to come back? Grandmother's face changed instantly. Something touched my chest. That question was more important than any apology. Eldest brother had always been the one who loved saying, I'll arrange it. Now for the first time, he stopped before arranging anything and asked what I wanted. I shook my head. Not for now. Eldest brother nodded. Then don't. Grandmother slapped the table. Xin Yangguan. Eldest brother. I spoke myself. Let me. He looked at me and truly stopped speaking. I turned toward grandmother. The Marquis estate is my home. Of course I'll return. I'll come back for festivals. When father is here, I'll come spend time with him. But I will also live with grandfather and grandmother. My incense studio will remain open. I will continue caring for mother's garden. In the future, what I learn, what I wear, where I go, whether I marry, and whom I marry, I will decide those things myself. Grandmother's face turned iron gray. You're a young woman. Where did you learn to have so many opinions? I looked at her. Because it is my life. Silence filled the hall. Inside my sleeves, my hands were actually trembling. Courage did not mean I wasn't afraid. It meant I was afraid and spoke anyway. Grandmother stared at me. The Su family has spoiled you into this. A woman who cannot endure hardship. What future can she possibly have? I suddenly smiled. Grandmother, I'm afraid of the cold. I'm afraid of pain. I cry. All of that is true. But when I promise something, I keep my word. I can manage my own shop. When I make a bad batch of incense, I start again. Whether someone can endure hardship and whether that person is capable are not the same thing. Grandmother opened her mouth again. Second brother spoke first. She's doing well now. Grandmother glared. Second brother rubbed his nose. I'm serious. I used to get annoyed whenever she cried. Thinking about it now, there wasn't really anything to be annoyed about. Third brother said, she doesn't need to endure everything. Fourth brother smiled. Grandmother, we can't possibly choose every hairpin she wears for the rest of her life. Fifth brother said nothing. He simply walked to my side. Sixth brother added, she doesn't need to be compared to anyone either. Z is Z. Seventh brother had remained silent. Grandmother turned to him. Yanqin, aren't you the one who dotes on her most? His expression was awful. He looked at me. Does this mean you won't need your brothers anymore? My eyes immediately burned. Of course, that was what he feared most. I walked toward him. I need you. He blinked. Really? Really? But I need you. That doesn't mean I have to obey you in everything. When I say no, you have to hear me. Seventh brother's eyes reddened. After a long time, he nodded. I understand. Finally, grandmother looked at eldest brother. Yingguan, you are indulging her too. Eldest brother was silent for a long time. Then he said, Grandmother, Z does not belong to me to manage. The tears almost escaped my eyes. Because in my previous life, eldest brother's favorite words had been, I'll handle it. I'll decide for you. I'll arrange everything. He had always thought that was protection. Now he finally understood, I was not his responsibility. And I was not his possession. Grandmother's expression remained ugly, but she did not press me again. She stood with the help of her cane. At the door, she stopped. Suit yourself. 2 words. Not warm. Not approval. But I suddenly smiled. In my previous life, I spent years longing to hear you finally become sensible. In this life, I discovered that suit yourself sounded pretty good too. That night, all 7 brothers crowded into my old courtyard. 7th brother asked, So, when are you officially moving back? I looked at him. Maybe at New Year. All 7 shouted, What? I hugged my cat and laughed. I like living with grandfather and grandmother. 7th brother became angry. Shansai, you're scaring me. He immediately closed his mouth. I laughed harder. When loving someone no longer required constant fear, even arguing became easier. A year later, I was still afraid of the cold every winter. The charcoal in my rooms burned hottest. My quilts were the softest. Grandmother even had 2 pairs of warm gloves made for me. Not one of my 7 brothers laughed anymore. 2nd brother occasionally couldn't control his mouth. Your room is hot enough to steam buns. I would look at him. He would immediately correct himself. Very nice. Warm. I laughed until I folded over. They truly changed a great deal. Before eldest brother arranged something for me, he began asking, Do you want to? Sometimes my answer matched what he had planned. Sometimes it was completely different. Slowly, he learned to accept both. 2nd brother learned to apologize seriously. He still didn't know how to comfort people. 3rd brother eventually began calling a physician when his old injuries hurt. The first time he openly said his leg hurt, the entire family went quiet. 4th brother started looking at my expression before making a joke at my expense. For 5th brother's birthday that year, the gift he gave me was no longer something he thought I ought to need. It was a beautiful set of flower shears I had wanted. 6th brother never compared Mingzhu to me again. After Mingzhu's ankle healed, she stopped forcing herself too. The first time she admitted she was afraid to ride a fierce horse, 6th brother personally found her a gentle little mare. 7th brother was the hardest to change. He was still clingy. He appeared at my incense studio every few days. One afternoon, he rushed inside excitedly. Z, come on. Without lifting my head, I asked, Where? To look at horses. No. He stopped. Why? I'm tired. The moment I said it, instinct made me want to explain. I had blended 2 batches of incense that day. I had gone to the flower nursery in the morning. I wasn't refusing because I didn't want to spend time with him. All those words rose to my mouth. Then I swallowed them. I only said, I don't want to go today. Disappointment showed plainly on 7th brother's face. In my previous life, the moment I saw that expression, I would have changed my answer. Now I didn't. He stood for a while, then said, "Rest. I'll ask tomorrow." "All right." And he really left. I looked at the doorway. My heart did not panic at all. I wasn't afraid he would never return. I wasn't afraid he would think I was selfish. Because I finally knew, refusing someone did not make real love disappear. Pei Jingqing changed too. Rainy days still made his leg hurt. Before, he would have hidden it. One day I asked, "Flower nursery today?" He answered naturally, "No. My leg hurts." I nodded immediately. "Then I'm not going either." He looked up. "Why aren't you going?" "I'm delicate." I said it with complete confidence. The road is slippery when it rains. I don't like walking in it. Pei Jingqing laughed. "Fine. Then neither of us goes." And we truly stayed beneath the covered veranda. One of us reviewed accounts, the other blended incense. Rain fell across the leaves. Everything was quiet. And suddenly I understood. In my previous life, I thought a good life meant keeping everyone satisfied. It turned out a comfortable life could be much simpler. You only needed to know you were allowed to say, "It hurts. I'm tired. I don't want to. I like this. I need help." Without being terrified that someone would stop loving you because of it. The day Pei Jingqing decided to propose, he came to me first. Not to eldest brother. Not to father. He stood beneath mother's old camellia tree. It had just begun blooming. "I want to formally ask your family for your hand." I looked at him. "And do you want me to?" I deliberately stayed silent. Pei Jingqing's ears slowly turned red. I suppressed a smile. "What if I don't?" "Then I won't." "That simple?" "You're the one getting married too. It's not only my marriage." I laughed. "Then come." "You agree?" "I agree." Pei Jingqing smiled too. The next day, the Pei family formally visited. Except before Pei Jingqing could enter the Marquis estate, 7 brothers blocked him in a perfect line. I stood beneath the corridor watching. It looked almost exactly like 2 years earlier when they had blocked the Su residence. Back then, they had come to retrieve their little sister. Now, they couldn't bear to let her marry. 7th brother was the worst. His face was dark as thunder. 2nd brother patted Pei Jingqing's shoulder. "Think carefully." Pei Jingqing looked confused. 4th brother added, "My sister is delicate. She's afraid of the cold, afraid of pain. And her temper isn't small." I narrowed my eyes from behind him. 4th brother immediately corrected himself. "All virtues. Every one of them." Pei Jingqing fought a smile. Finally, eldest brother looked at me. "Are you certain?" I nodded. "I'm certain." Eldest brother was silent for a moment, then stepped aside. The others had no choice but to move too. 7th brother stood last. He refused to budge. I walked over. 7th brother. His eyes were red. "Does this mean you won't want your brothers anymore?" Again that sentence. From childhood until now, it had always been his greatest fear. I suddenly remembered the unfinished wrist guard I had left behind when I moved away 2 years earlier. One day later, I had wanted to finish it. So I did, not to please him, not because I was afraid he would be upset, simply because I wanted to give it to him. I went to my old room, returned with the box, and tossed it at him. Seventh brother caught it. When he opened the lid and saw the embroidered wrist guard, he froze. This? I didn't finish it back then. I completed it later. His fingers brushed the cloud pattern. His eyes grew even redder. Then why didn't you give it to me before? I forgot. Shanzai. See, you're frightening me again. He immediately closed his mouth. I smiled at him. Who said I don't want you? You're still my seventh brother. But from now on, don't assume I'll always be running after you. He held the wrist guard. After a long time, he said quietly, I know. I turned. Pei Jingqing was waiting outside the courtyard gate. Behind me were my 7 brothers. Eldest brother was still talking about the dowry accounts. Second brother was asking what we were eating for lunch. Fourth brother and sixth brother were arguing over who would escort the bridal procession. Fifth brother held my cat. Third brother complained that everyone was too loud. Seventh brother was still standing there staring at his wrist guard. From the distance, Grandmother Sue called, Z, it's windy. Put on another layer. I smiled. I know. The spring wind blew past. It wasn't cold at all, but I still went back for a cloak. Because if I was afraid of the cold, I could wear more. If something hurt, I could say it hurt. If I was tired, I could rest. If I liked flowers, I could grow flowers. If I wanted to be spoiled for a while, I could be spoiled. I could be delicate and still live my life well. In my previous life, I chased my 7 brothers for an entire lifetime, desperately proving I was worthy of being loved by them. Given another chance, I stopped running after them. And later, they chased me all the way to my grandparents' home and asked, why don't you want your brothers anymore? But what I truly learned in this life was never how to stop wanting them. It was this: do not lose yourself first. I could have 7 brothers. I could have Pei Jingqing. I could have my maternal grandparents. I could have flowers, incense, so much love. But before all of that, I had myself. Extra story 1, the 7 brothers babysit together for the first time. In the 3rd year of my marriage, I had a daughter. Her childhood name was Tuan Tuan. Before Tuan Tuan was even born, my 7 brothers had already spent half a year arguing over one question: which uncle would be her favorite. Eldest brother believed there was no need to argue. He said, seniority determines order. I'm the eldest maternal uncle. 7th brother laughed coldly on the spot. She might not even recognize you. Eldest brother looked at him. What is that supposed to mean? You walk around with that stern face all day. 7th brother spoke with absolute confidence. Tuan Tuan will cry the moment she sees you. 2nd brother added helpfully. I think he has a point. Eldest brother's face went dark. Then Tuan Tuan was actually born. The first time the 7 of them came to see her, they stood in a line beside the cradle. Tuan Tuan had just eaten. Her round dark eyes looked like black grapes as she stared at everyone. 7th brother leaned in first. Tuan Tuan. I'm 7th uncle. Your mother liked me best when she was little. I sat in bed and laughed coldly. Who told you that? 7th brother pretended not to hear me. Tuan Tuan stared at him, then suddenly smiled. 7th brother nearly floated off the ground from pride. Did you see that? She likes me. The expressions of the other 6 brothers immediately worsened. Second brother squeezed in. Move. Tuan Tuan, second uncle brought you candy. I stared at him. She doesn't have teeth. Second brother froze. Then I'll save it for her. Fourth brother immediately said, looks to me like you plan to eat it yourself. The room descended into chaos. Pei Jingqing stood by the window with his arms folded, watching. I asked, you're not going to do anything? He was perfectly calm. Why? Your daughter is about to be stolen. They can't steal her. Then he held out his hands. Tuan Tuan, who had just been smiling at seventh brother, immediately turned her head. The next moment, both tiny hands reached toward her father. Seventh brother's smile disappeared. Pei Jingqing picked his daughter up, then looked calmly at seventh brother. See? Seventh brother was so angry he nearly left. He didn't, because Tuan Tuan suddenly sneezed. All 7 brothers crowded around her at once. Is she cold? Is there a draft? Close the window. Is there enough charcoal? Z, why is she wearing so little? I fell silent, then looked at Pei Jingqing. Does this feel familiar? He nodded. Extremely. I laughed. Brothers. All 7 turned toward me. I asked lazily, do you think she's being a little delicate? The room went silent. Seventh brother reacted first. Nonsense. Second brother frowned. It's normal for a baby to be afraid of the cold. Third brother said, seriously, newborns are physically weak. They should be carefully protected. Fourth brother declared, crying isn't being delicate. She can't speak. Fifth brother, she is wearing too little. Sixth brother, who dares compare her to another child? Eldest brother concluded, no one is allowed to call Tuan Tuan delicate. I nearly laughed aloud. Oh, so now you understand. 7 brothers stared at me. Pei Jingqing lowered his head. His shoulders were visibly shaking. I glared at him. If you want to laugh, laugh. He immediately turned away. Too late. Fourth brother pointed at him. Pei Jingqing, have you been waiting all these years just to laugh at us? Pei Jingqing hugged his daughter securely. No. I simply think karma came rather quickly. All 7 brothers tried to surround him. I shouted, stop fighting. Everyone froze. Tuan Tuan startled too. Her little mouth trembled. Then she began crying. The 7 uncles panicked instantly. Why is she crying? Who frightened her? Was fourth brother too loud? Clearly it was seventh. What does this have to do with me? Tuan Tuan cried louder. In the end, Pei Jingqing was the one who soothed her. The 7 brothers stood around him, every face more serious than the last. I sat in bed and suddenly thought, this scene looked familiar. Perhaps this was how they had once surrounded me. Somewhere along the way, they forgot that the little girl who used to be picked up by 7 brothers whenever she cried had only ever been an ordinary little girl. A little girl who felt pain. Who became afraid. 7th brother suddenly leaned toward me. Z. He rubbed his nose. Were you this noisy when you were little? I smiled sweetly. I don't know. I forgot. 7th brother clearly didn't believe me. I added lazily. The only thing I remember is eventually someone started saying I was delicate. 7th brother fell silent. Then he turned and walked away. I called, "Where are you going?" "Shopping." "For what?" He gritted his teeth. 70 padded jackets for Tuan. I stared at him. Pei Jingqing finally lost control. He laughed aloud. Extra story 2, Pei Jingqing gets drunk for the first time, and my 7 brothers nearly die of joy. Pei Jingqing had a poor tolerance for alcohol. No one knew this before we married, because he was a man with excellent self-awareness. He knew he couldn't drink. So whenever possible, he avoided it. Then came eldest brother's birthday. All 7 brothers were together for once. I don't know which of them had the wicked idea first, but they began taking turns toasting Pei Jingqing. By the time I noticed, it was too late. Pei Jingqing sat at the table. He looked almost exactly as he did when sober. His gaze was even clear. Only his ears were very red. I walked over. "How much have you had?" He looked at me. "Not much." 7th brother immediately reported. 6 cups. I glared at him. "You did this deliberately." He looked innocent. "How could we?" 4th brother added, "Our brother-in-law rarely drinks with us." We were happy. I laughed humorlessly, as if I'd believed them. I held out my hand. "Come on." Pei Jingqing immediately stood, very obediently. I blinked. Normally, if I said "come on," he would at least ask where we were going. Today, he hadn't asked a single question. Suspicion grew. "Pei Jingqing, are you drunk?" "No." He sounded extremely certain. I stared. "Really?" "Really." Then he turned toward my 7 brothers and announced with great seriousness, "I'm taking Z home." 7th brother immediately objected. "This is already her home." Pei Jingqing nodded. "True. Then I'll go home with her to her home." 7th brother stared at him. 4th brother had already collapsed over the table laughing. Now I was certain he was absolutely drunk. Sober Pei Jingqing would never speak in such circles. I tugged his sleeve. "Let's go." He looked down at my hand around his wrist, then stopped moving. "What now?" He asked, "Do you like me?" The entire hall went silent. Heat rushed into my face. "You're drunk." "I know." "If you know, why are you asking?" "Because when I'm sober, I'm too embarrassed." My 7 brothers fell silent. So did I. It was the first time I learned how honest Pei Jingqing became when drunk. 7th brother sneered. "You know how to feel embarrassed?" Pei Jingqing turned to him very seriously. "Yes. The first time I came to your family to propose, I was very nervous." All 7 brothers suddenly became interested. 2nd brother asked, "Were you afraid we'd refuse?" "No." "Then what were you afraid of?" Pei Jingqing pointed at me. "That she would change her mind." I had been trying to drag him away. My hand slowed. 7th brother looked displeased. "Wouldn't her changing her mind be excellent?" Pei Jingqing looked at him. "You're wrong." "How?" "Z likes me." He said it with infuriating certainty. 7th brother laughed in disbelief. "Who told you that?" Pei Jingqing pointed at me again. "She did." 7 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My head hurt. "Yes, I did." Seventh brother clutched his chest. Little sister, there was no need to confirm that again. I ignored him. Drunk Pei Jingqing clearly intended to spare no one. He turned toward eldest brother. Eldest brother. Eldest brother's expression became complicated. Who are you calling that? You. Silence. Z calls you eldest brother. So I do too. For once, even eldest brother had no answer. Second brother was beside himself, trying not to laugh. Pei Jingqing continued. Eldest brother. What? Thank you. Eldest brother paused. For what? For eventually learning to ask Z whether she wanted something. The hall went quiet. I froze too. Pei Jingqing's gaze was already slightly unfocused from the wine, yet his words were clear. I didn't like you very much before. All seven brothers' expressions darkened simultaneously. I immediately pulled him. That's enough. He refused to move. I like you a little better now. Fourth brother's mouth twitched. Should we thank you for the honor? Pei Jingqing seriously considered. No need. Fourth brother stared at him. I was almost dying from laughter. At last, Pei Jingqing turned towards seventh brother. Seventh brother became visibly wary. What do you want? Pei Jingqing walked over, patted his shoulder. You're not bad either. Seventh brother's face darkened. Take your hand off me. Pei Jingqing did not. Instead, he leaned closer. But you're too clingy with Z. Silence. You should improve that. Seventh brother exploded. Pei Jingqing. I hurried over and dragged him back. Stop talking. Pei Jingqing stopped immediately, obedient as anything. My seven brothers were collectively stunned. Seventh brother pointed at him. Why does he listen to you like that? I glanced at the drunk man beside me. Because he listens when he's sober too. Seventh brother looked even more traumatized. Impossible. I ignored him. Eventually, I managed to get Pei Jingqing into the carriage. He leaned against the wall with his eyes closed. I poked his arm. Will you drink with them again? No. Why? They're bad people. I burst out laughing. Will you dare say that again when you're sober? Pei Jingqing opened his eyes, looked at me. Yes. The next morning he woke. I repeated every single thing he had said the night before. Pei Jingqing remained silent for an entire quarter hour. I smiled sweetly. Still dare? He turned around. There's work at the flower nursery today. I grabbed his sleeve. Pei Jingqing, why are you running? I'm not. Then why are your ears red? He finally turned back, his face expressionless. Z. Sometimes people should be permitted to forget things. I laughed so hard I nearly fell out of my chair. Extra story 3, my 7 brothers discover that my son is not delicate at all. When Tuan Tuan was 4, I had a son. His childhood name was Yuan Bao. 7th brother chose it for an extremely vulgar reason. He said, "You make money with your incense studio, so your son should be called Yuan Bao, little gold ingot." I refused. He called the child Yuan Bao every day anyway. Eventually, the entire family became used to it. Yuan Bao was completely different from Tuan Tuan. Tuan Tuan was afraid of the cold, afraid of insects. If she fell, she might cry for half an hour. From the moment Yuan Bao learned to walk, he could fall 8 times in one day. Every time he got up on his own, then charged forward again. At first, the 7 uncles were very pleased, especially third brother. He held Yuan Bao and sighed with satisfaction. This child takes after the Shen family. I was drinking tea. I looked at him. Third brother immediately added. I mean his energy. I'm not saying he should endure hardship. I nodded in satisfaction. After Yuan Bao turned 3, the brothers began fighting over who would teach him. Eldest brother taught him characters. Third brother taught him basic martial stances. 6th brother taught him to ride a little pony. 7th brother was the worst. He taught him to climb walls. By the time I discovered this, Yuan Bao was already standing beneath the old wall at my grandparents' house, staring upward at 7th brother. Uncle, can I really climb it? Of course. 7th brother crouched. Your mother didn't dare when she was little. I stood behind him, smiling with great tenderness. 7th brother. His entire body froze slowly. He turned. Z, when did you get here? From the moment you said I didn't dare when I was little. 7th brother immediately corrected himself. You weren't afraid. You simply considered wall climbing beneath you. I laughed without humor. Yuan Bao had already begun scrambling up the wall. I didn't stop him. If he wanted to try, he could try. His first foothold slipped. Thump. He landed on his bottom. 7th brother's face turned white. Yuan Bao. He rushed over. Does it hurt? Yuan Bao shook his head. No. 7th brother relaxed. See, boys are just, my expression changed instantly. 7th brother stopped himself too. Yuan Bao was already preparing to stand. And I crouched beside him. Does it truly not hurt? He blinked, looked at me, then at 7th brother. Finally, he whispered, my bottom hurts a little. I nodded. Then rub it. Yuan Bao immediately patted his own bottom. Done. And went back to climbing. 7th brother stood nearby with a complicated expression. I asked, what's wrong? He rubbed his nose. Nothing. I just suddenly think it's a good thing you asked one more time. I said, nothing. I only smiled. Later, Yuan Bao truly learned to climb walls. And that was when disaster began. Unlike Tuan Tuan, he did not need anyone to coax him into adventures. If he wanted to go somewhere, he went. On the first day, he climbed into grandfather's vegetable garden and pulled up 3 radishes. On the second, he climbed into the neighboring courtyard and returned carrying a chicken. On the third, his head suddenly appeared over the top of the Marquis estate wall. He frightened paternal grandmother so badly she nearly threw her teacup. 7th brother finally realized there was a problem. He carried Yuan Bao back, then gave him a serious lecture. No climbing random walls. Yuan Bao looked terribly wronged. But uncle taught me. 7th brother fell silent. The whole family looked at him. I sat nearby drinking tea, perfectly calm. Eldest brother asked coldly. You taught him? 7th brother tried to defend himself. I demonstrated once. 4th brother immediately said, I'll testify. At least 5 times. 7th brother glared. Whose brother are you? 4th brother laughed until he nearly fell over. Yuan Bao was still reporting his crimes. Uncle said a man falls down and gets back up. Third brother's expression changed too. That sentence sounded rather familiar. Seventh brother hurriedly explained. I never told him he wasn't allowed to cry. I swear I didn't. I set down my tea. No one accused you. Seventh brother became even more nervous. I've changed. Truly. If something hurts, I absolutely let him say so. Yuanbao suddenly raised his hand. Mother. Yes. I hurt now. Seventh brother instantly crouched. Where? Yuanbao held his stomach. I'm hungry. Everyone stared. I burst out laughing. Seventh brother was so angry he raised a hand as if to smack Yuanbao's bottom. The hand stopped halfway. Then he asked, Am I allowed to hit him? I laughed even harder. Why are you asking me? Ask him. Seventh brother turned to Yuanbao. Can uncle smack you once? Yuanbao shook his head immediately. No. Why? I'm delicate. The room went silent. Then Tuan laughed so hard she slid off her chair. Fourth brother slapped the table. Second brother laughed until he coughed. Even eldest brother turned his face away. Seventh brother stood in the middle of the room, speechless with fury. I leaned against Pei Jingqing's shoulder. Tears streamed down my face from laughing. Pei Jingqing was laughing too. Only seventh brother pointed at Yuanbao. After a long struggle, he managed. Who taught you that? Yuanbao pointed at me without hesitation. Mother. Seventh brother looked at me. I lifted my chin. What? Is there something wrong with being delicate? Seventh brother opened his mouth, then surrendered. No. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Yuanbao immediately threw himself at him. Uncle, I'm hungry. Seventh brother picked him up. Come on. Uncle will buy you something. Tuan immediately chased after them. I want some too. Seventh brother turned. Everyone's coming. Sixth brother shouted. Why should they only go with seventh uncle? Second brother stood too. I have money. Fourth brother said, I know the best place to eat. The seven brothers began arguing as they headed outside. The two children were trapped in the middle. Both looked delighted. I stood at the doorway and watched. Pei Jingqing came to stand beside me. You're not going to interfere? I shook my head. No. Won't they spoil the children? I looked at him. You're starting to sound more and more like eldest brother. Pei Jingqing immediately corrected himself. Forget I asked. I laughed. Outside the courtyard, the seven uncles were still arguing. Suddenly, Tuan shouted, Mother, can we come back late tonight? I called back, why? The uncles are taking us to eat lots and lots of things. Before I could answer, seventh brother shouted, the children asked to go themselves. We didn't decide for them. My shoulders shook with laughter. I know. Go. A crowd of cheers disappeared into the distance. Pei Jingqing stood beside me. After a moment, he sighed. They really have improved. I nodded. They have. Only one thing hasn't changed. What? I looked at the distant figures of 7 brothers fighting over 2 children and smiled. They're still noisy.